Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're having a great Saturday. And I hope my life is working because I'm a little bit like jagged on my end. So fingers crossed. If you're here, if you're popping in, come say hi. Let me know how your day is going, how your weekend's going. We're having a rainy Saturday here, but it's actually like a light rain and it's kind of crisp out. So I don't actually mind it. So welcome to today's live. I am Lauren Lefkowitz, executive coach, and I work with the people pleasers, perfectionists, and workaholics of the world. You know who you are. I'm glad to be here with you. I am a recovering all of those things, workaholic, people pleaser, and perfectionist. And I am in the middle of re-emerging from all things. I had for the last year or so, I had kind of a quiet year, partly circumstantial and partly it was just like the phase I was in. It was the thing I needed. And was talking to Katie McManus. If you don't know her, give her a follow. She's my business coach and also a very good friend of mine. And I was talking about how I've been shying away from the camera. I've been doing more text posts or, posting a photo here and there, but doing more text posts. And so she challenged me to 30 days of going live in a row and said she'd play along. And so follow us both, follow our live adventures. And let us know if you have any topics you want to hear. I am very open to any specific questions about burnout, boundaries, figuring out what and who you want to be when you grow up, whenever that may be. And whether you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, beyond, we all decide at some point, like, this is my career, this is the direction I'm going in, and we don't always love it forever. And so my whole platform is that we get to choose. We get to choose what's going to stay the same. We get to choose what's going to be different. If you've seen me before, you may notice my hair is a different color. Last week or last couple of weeks, I chose to go from the dark blonde, light brown era back into my redheaded era. So every several years, I tend to shift from one to the other, and I'm back to red. So welcome to the new me. Same on the inside, a little bit different on the outside. Anyway, today we are going to be talking about the hopeless devotion we have in some cases to our jobs. And this could be your job. This could be your career. This could be a boss you've followed from place to place. This could be whatever you feel like gets stuck in your system as a way that you are as an adult career human, right? So this could be that you've been with a company for a really long time and you loved the company at one point. You don't love it anymore, but you don't feel like you can leave for one reason or another. And we're going to talk about what makes us devoted to a company or a job. But that could be that you've been with a company for a long time. You feel a sense of loyalty and you feel a sense of obligation to stay. And or you feel like, well, I've been here for a long time. I don't really know how to work someplace else. So I guess I better stay here. We also have devotion in a way that becomes or can become like a compulsion. And that was my brand of workaholism when I was a workaholic, was this like compulsion to do more. I always think of Monica from Friends. There was an episode where she and Rachel and the guys had to switch apartments. And so she was trying to fancy up the guy's apartment because she wanted to always be the hostess. And there's a scene where she's like using a floor sander to refinish the floors and she gets all like stuck in it, but she insists on doing it herself. And at the end, when she finally gets the apartment the way that she wants it, you see her, they're all hanging out in their new apartment. and you see her falling asleep on the couch and sort of murmuring like, I'm the hostess, I'm always the hostess, and sort of like holding her title as hostess. And I think about that when I think of what my brand of hopeless devotion to my jobs have been. I've worked my way out of that, and it's a lot of what I work with my clients on. But I was in a place in my career when I was still in my corporate life where I worked 80 plus hours a week, and I thought that was reasonable. And it wasn't. First of all, it's not reasonable to be paid for a full-time job, which is 40-ish hours a week, and consistently be working 80 to 100 hours a week. So if you're doing that and you divide the number of hours you're actually working by the salary that you're making, and you look at how much lower your hourly rate is than if you were working a 40 or 50-hour week, that might help change your mind about committing yourself to 80 to 100 hours a week if you're not billable by the hour and paid by the hour. That's a whole other life. And that's one that's coming up, is how many hours you spend working. That's what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow, is how many hours you spend working during the week. And it's not what you think. It's not just a matter of the hours that you're interacting with people and logged onto your computer. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow, preview for tomorrow. So stay tuned, and I'll probably be going live tomorrow in the afternoon, maybe like around 2 or 3, but stay tuned for that. You can always watch the replay if you miss it. But so when you think about the things that you're devoted to and the way that you're devoted to work, it comes from a couple of different things. One, it can come from you actually love what you're doing. And so take out the hopeless, right? Take out hopelessly devoted and just devoted, right? If you are like way on board with your company's mission, you're way on board with the way that they do business, you're way on board with the way that they treat people, with the mission, with the job you have and the way that you serve the company, and you're working more hours than maybe you would in another setting, I'm not going to tell you, you're probably not going to watch this live. You're not going to be super interested because you're not going to identify with not having boundaries, with being in burnout, with resenting the job, with resenting the way your career is going. That's not going to align with you. And that's okay. Go ahead. You can go do something else. Go busy yourself with some Saturday afternoon activities. For the rest of us, when you find yourself in a job where you feel like you have no escape, where you feel like you have no escape from responsibilities, vacation doesn't feel like vacation, nighttime doesn't feel like a break from work, weekends don't feel like the week has ended. It just feels like there's more to finish up from last week and there's more to do for next week. And it doesn't make you happy, right? That's fine as a trap. That's where that comes from. If it makes you happy, like, have at it. I worked 80 plus hours for a long time, and I actually really loved it for a short time. I was really thriving on it. I was accomplishing things nobody had accomplished in that company before. I was doing new things. I was introducing things. I was getting a lot of pats on the back for making a difference, for my position being absolutely so needed, and it being the first time in the company they had my position. The ego boost, the dopamine was like freaking amazing. The burnout came when I didn't want to do it anymore and I didn't know how to back out of it. Right. So I didn't want to work 80 plus hours a week anymore. I didn't want to be the interim vice president of every department anymore. And I had established it in the company that I worked for that there was nobody else who could do those things. And I would do it. I became the chronic hand raiser. And I see this in a ton of my clients, a ton of people in my community who self-identify as people pleasers, who self-identify as helpers, which is another word for people pleaser. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with it being a people pleaser. I'm still a people pleaser and I like it about myself. I just also have boundaries now. And that is what I preach, is that you get to still be you 100%. And also you get to come first. You get to come first for you. You get to come first for whatever is important to you, your family, your friends, your dog, your hobby of buying cheap thrift store glassware and smashing it, whatever it is, whatever floats your boat. But we don't. So instead, we become hopelessly devoted to our jobs, hopelessly devoted to our careers, and we don't know how to get out of it. So I'm going to tell you today where I see some of the lines crossover from like okay to not okay. So like I said, there was a period of time where I was working 80 plus hours a week and I enjoyed it. So the first thing to start looking at is, are you having like a little bit of fun every day? And that seems like, okay, Lauren, we're grown-ups here. We don't have to have, not every day has to be fun. Not everything has to be fun. Totally agree. Not every single day of your entire life is going to be the best day you've ever had. Believe me, I have had a bunch of hard days. And also, when you think of the balance of things, right? At the end of the day, when you think of the balance of things, you want to have more good, fun, satisfying, enriching days than you do that was hard kind of days. So one activity you can start doing for yourself, and this doesn't fix anything. We're not fixing anything today. We're noticing. We're noticing what's going on in our worlds. So when you think about work, if you look at the past, I don't know, week, 2 weeks of your work life, if that's a pretty typical 2 weeks, right? If it's not, start counting forward. Start today or Monday and start counting forward, sort of day by day. At the end of the day, what did you do that felt really good? It doesn't have to have been fun if fun is not your aim, but satisfying, encouraging, accomplishment based, appreciated by your colleagues. Build whatever categories you want that make for a satisfying workday. Getting rest at night can be part of that, right? Like, did you finish work and all you're thinking about is work for the rest of the night? Or did you mean to do X, Y, and Z and you can never get to X, Y, and Z because there are always a million meetings to go to? Like, those are the kinds of things to look at. You can even do a system where you set an alarm in your iPhone or Android. You're allowed to have an Android, but can't you just get an iPhone because they're better? But set an alarm at the end of every day. How was your day? And give yourself some sort of a rating for how your day was. If you are finding that every day it's somewhere between fine and awful, or horrible, or I hated it, or I cried again today, or all I wanted to do all day was tell everybody I was leaving for the day and I didn't feel like I could. Start keeping track of that, because this is your whole life, right? I'm not saying work is your whole life, but work impacts your whole life. The way that your work day goes, the way that your work week, your work month, your work year goes, piles up on all the previous ones. So if you have one bad day at work, but it's surrounded by like pretty good to excellent, that one day, you can write that off. You can say like, you know what, that was just a bad day. I just had an argument with so-and-so, or it was super long, or I had a headache and I worked through it. Whatever it is, one bad day is one bad day. If you're looking at your whole week and you don't like any of it, you don't feel good about any of it, you don't feel satisfied with the work that you're doing, you don't feel like you're allowed to set a boundary, allowed to take a sick day, allowed to put your phone down and not check your email for a little while, that's when we've crossed the line from committed to your job in a positive way that's healthy, that enriches you, that supports you. That's when we've crossed the line to hopelessly devoted, when it is breaking you to be in your job. I have had clients who come to me with, I really love this company, but my boss is so terrible that it's intolerable and there's no place else for me to go in the company, either because there's no other department or because, that you're in a really specific kind of job, or the company is small. or that boss will block you from trying to move around the company. If you're in this place where you're always saying the job is great, and the but is bigger than the job being great or the posterity of working for a company with a fancy name or a recognizable brand, if you're finding that you just freaking hate it every day and you don't know how to back out of it, then it's time to think about, why are you so hopelessly devoted to this job? And I think what happens to a lot of us, and this is anecdotal, but it's from my experience in working with clients for many, many years, and my personal experience, is we get in so deep with what we think we're supposed to be doing, how we think we're supposed to be performing, what we imagine the perception is of us, that we don't want to break, that we're dependable and collegial and have good leadership skills and somehow manage some very large workload that we manage to just take care of and make it look so easy. We don't want to lose that reputation. We don't want to be in a place or a position where we think that other people think poorly of us or think differently of us. And so we stay. We also stay because we're afraid somehow that we got lucky being put in the position we were put in, that we are lucky to be earning the money that we're earning. I've had more clients than I can count who have come to me with golden handcuffs on, only to get jobs that pay better because they've learned what their actual value is versus what the company has led them to believe their value is, because they've told them how lucky they are to get a raise. And we don't have that much money in the budget, but we really want to do our very best for you. So we're paying you the best we can. You won't get this anywhere else. We get sort of brainwashed into thinking that what we have is never going to be as good somewhere else. I can remember for myself, I had applied for a job and I'd interviewed, and it was a decent interview. And the job, though, felt very similar to the job I was already doing. And because it was a larger company, I would be reporting into a more senior HR person instead of directly to the CEO. So it didn't really appeal to me. But I remember my first thought when I interviewed for that job was, if they offer me the job, I'm not going to take it, because at least where I am, I can go to like a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment without anybody saying anything, because I have like the built equity of being reliable. Now, when I went to the doctor, when I went to the dentist, I was checking my email until the doctor came in to do whatever examination, or the dentist came in to clean my teeth. And then as soon as that was over, I'm walking out the door on my phone. So I never missed a beat. Of course I could go to doctor's appointments. I wasn't really missing any work by going to doctor's appointments. And I think a lot of us live this way, that we build these habits, we build these pleasing habits that absolutely serve the companies that we're in. So we get a lot of praise for being the team player and being a good leader and being a great contributor. And we feel like we're not going to be able to get all of that dopamine somewhere else, and all of that ability to contribute and the seat at the table that we've worked so long to have. I'm here to tell you can. I'm here to tell you that there are a lot of jobs out there, and I know it's a totally tough job market. There are also a lot of ways to change how things are going inside of the company you're working for. So I've left corporate America. I do some consulting, but mostly I coach, and I work with people who stay in corporate America for the most part. And what I see most commonly is that people want to leave their job so they can start fresh somewhere else and set boundaries. But the actually coolest way to do it, and the way I did it, and the way I do it with a lot of my clients, unless they're really in a dire employment situation, and then I help them figure out how to leave in the most productive way possible, is to use the company you're in right now as a playground. Test the waters, test the boundaries. And I'm not saying walk in and say like, it's all over for you suckers. And I say this all the time. You never want to walk in and like drop the news that everything is changing today, because A, it won't. And B, you're going to regret it because you won't be comfortable with it. You won't be able to sustain it. Like any habit, if you're changing habits, if you're changing the way that you work and the way that you approach work and the way that you approach boundaries and the way that you look at your own burnout, you can't change it all in one fell swoop. In fact, the first goal, the first commitment that most of my clients make, we actually break down into way smaller bits, because as high achievers, which many of us who are workaholics, people pleasers, and perfectionists are, as high achievers, we want to do everything at 110%. So if I am working 80 to 100 hours a week and I say this week I'm only working 40 hours, all I'm doing is setting myself up for 110 hours the next week, because anything I'm putting off still has to get done. So it's about figuring out, first of all, what are you hopelessly devoted to? Secondly, why? What has you hopelessly devoted to your job? Is it love of the mission, but you want to handle how you work differently? Is it the job is terrible, but you're afraid to go anywhere else? Or is it something totally in between? So the first thing is figuring out, what is it that's making you work so much or be so devoted to a company or a job or a career that's not serving you anymore? That's the first thing. The second thing after you do that is, what would you rather have? Then the third thing is, where do you start? And I want you to think like super small. And, what is one small thing that you can change? See if it works, prove yourself right, and then start trying other things. And I will tell you this, it's very hard to do that by yourself. And that's why people hire coaches. That's why I'm an executive coach, because I think it is so important to have the support, especially when you're an independent, high achieving, people pleasing human, to have somebody on your side who can ask you the right questions, who can help you figure out what are the right steps for you, what are the right commitments for you, in order for you to make frequent and small changes that will help you figure out what you don't want anymore, what you do want, and how to go after it. On that note, I'm going to end for the day. But before I do, I want you to know I'm going live for 30 days in a row. Today is day 2. I'm in this challenge with my own coach, my business coach, Katie McManus. We are both going live for 30 days, and we both have consequences to come for ourselves if we fail to go live on one day. So please root for me to remember to go live every day for 30 days. Otherwise, I will be posting a horrible picture of myself, pose chosen by Katie, as a consequence of not going live on a day. And if Katie doesn't go live on a day, then I get to choose a song for her to sing. So, root for her to, keep going with this challenge the way I'm going to keep going with this challenge. But a little bit, you can root for her to forget a day or two so that you can see her sing a song live on video. Anyway, have an amazing day. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next time. Bye.